Hello and welcome. I'm David. I first gave this talk at Vizit Sydney 2025. A big thanks to the organisers and sponsors who made the event happen. I'll put some links in the description. I'm going to explain how I try and get more comfortable with sharing my work on Tableau Public. But before we get into the why and the details for how to best do this, I'll give you the quick answer. Add an about page or similar to your Tableau Public workbooks, which explains your own reasoning and experience that you want to share. Perhaps it's some mix of the following: building a viz to learn storytelling, technology you use behind the scenes, things you're experimenting with, what features and functions are you trying to learn about. Your about page could be an entirely separate page or just an insert, but I'll remind you it's about sharing your experience and reasoning. In this case, it probably shouldn't be the data story. Stick around for my journey on this and the why behind it, and that should help this make more sense. A little about me. I'm a co-lead of the Sydney Tableau user group, and before becoming that, I'd done a few presentations with the Sydney Tableau user group and some internal company ones as well. Being at events like user groups and special events like Vizit, I've seen and heard so many amazing talks and visualizations, which means I can get scared away from doing my own talks because of the high standard that everyone keeps doing. And the same goes that when I want to share my content on Tableau Public. So how do I compete with all those great talks and all those great visualizations? How do I overcome the fears that I have? Put simply, I try not to compete because there's always something amazing out there. The how and why I got to developing this talk is I have a really turbulent relationship with communication. This turbulence stems from people not hearing the words as I intend them. Quite often, they apply the context which goes with their upbringing or potentially some social norms that they're aware of to the words that I have used. This has gotten pretty frustrating at times, which has led me to learning and trying to understand more efficient ways to communicate what I have meant. I can't always stop everyone for a 20-minute rant on how to better communicate with me. I could go to the flip side and not engage with chatter and discourse, though that means I won't learn as much and it certainly won't help me communicate my thoughts. I'm pretty sure it's a part of my day job to speak up and get involved in data conversations. So that's why I started thinking about how to message my intentions on what I'm sharing in Tableau Public. So, what do we normally see, hear, and interpret when we look at Tableau Public? It's like the fashion and health magazine of data viz when we go to that front page. Unattainable beauty everywhere. Okay, maybe an exaggeration, but I think it illustrates the point that the focus in Tableau Public is often of the beauty of the data and how the data story is told. Just look at the homepage. Visit a day, visit for social good, makeover Mondays, workout Wednesdays. Now all those thoughts start popping into my brain. The doubt. I'm the imposter. Why should I bother? I don't want people to see my work. I'll never produce anything as good as those. So much good content. So it turns out there's an old quote for this. Comparison is the thief of joy. Okay, you've seen other people use quotes in their talks. Don't steal my happiness. But it's good advice. Perhaps I can get my own joy back. But just because I'm not comparing doesn't mean that other people looking at the content aren't comparing. If you're going for a job, I've known managers who specifically ask for people to provide a link to their Tableau Public profile. It's not uncommon. Sure, I might have some good work published, perhaps even behind the scenes some are brilliant. But how will others know that this isn't meant to be a visit of the day entry? How do we get an apples to apples comparison about what I've been trying to do with my Tableau Public? So perhaps it's not about no comparison, just about comparison for the right reasons. There can be benefits to comparison because it can be a great way to see what you might want to learn next. I hope people don't try and compare this talk to the one on visualization best practices. They're both talks on Tableau, but with very different aims. So how to highlight my success? Okay, time for the big reveal again. Usually we tell the data story. It's time to add the story of you and the data. So what do I mean? Most Tableau Public visualizations tell a data story, but look how much blank space I've left on this slide. There are so many stages you may have gone through to get to that data story. You could and should be telling these stories about your journey to the visualization. The most common non-data story that I've seen on Tableau Public is the resume dashboard, and then perhaps the intersection of exercise data and strong visualizations. By exercise, I mean the physical activity and not a Makeover Monday exercise. But these still aren't quite what I'm getting at with this idea of an about page. A word of warning, you shouldn't probably try and squeeze all of these other stories into one page. Of course, it will depend, but think about if you're overloading your audience. These are just some of the possible development stages that you might have a story you want to share. Technology, acquisition, automation, analysis. Perhaps you're learning how to use Python to help with many of those steps. Or perhaps you have a tight integration with a third-party product, so your audience can generally have it all right in front of them to see that data and make that data-informed decision. Okay, what about some other common story themes? Again, there is the development stages that I just mentioned, and also many other factors that you can share your experience on. Time. I've done a number of 1 hour challenges. If your audience doesn't know that you've only spent 1 hour building this dashboard, that can be the difference between disappointment, that's all you did, and amazement. Wow, that's what you managed to get done in an hour? Viz type. I've seen a few people make their story on this topic, which is about why they built a particular kind of chart. But rarely do they go into the details, the gotchas, the top tips. Like you might see in someone's blog post. You might be practicing Tableau formulas, level of details, Tableau's order of operations, many other Tableau features. These competitions. This might have a mix of time, things you are and aren't allowed to do, maybe some teamwork, particular kinds of data you have to start with. Skills boost. Personally, I should do a whole lot of these myself on window calcs and table referencing functions, but only so much time. What about a story showing here's how I did it wrong to begin with, and here's how I fixed it? Journey style of story. An oversimplified example would be the joining of data tables, and now some of your numbers have multiplied by the number of rows in that category, and what steps you did to make it right again. Other Tableau features, show hide, learning how to apply those top tips you may have seen in other presentations, Tableau user groups, and alike. I'm going to talk about data acquisition again. Because it's my Tableau Public, I'm generally not being paid to develop and publish content there. And using anything from my day job would probably pretty quickly have me not have a day job. So lots of my stories start with how I obtain the data. Another way of putting it is you're adding context to your message. Helping understand why I have published something to Tableau Public has helped me improve my confidence for publishing. And I hope it can do the same for you. A silly example to show how context can change the meaning. I keep dragging these pills and look at all the pretty colors. Talking at a Tableau event? All good. Talking at airport customs? Bad times ahead. So it's about providing that context for your Tableau Public. When I'm giving a talk, I've naturally got some time to fill. And by the nature of trying to fill that time, the context is likely to start to creep in, even if I forget about it. And that isn't always a given. I've worked at adding context, but it wasn't always natural to me. And along that way, I've certainly learnt about how important it is. So what is that standard context when publishing on Tableau Public? I would say it's to show the data story, and then your skills in making a visualization and perhaps a data story. But often the purpose you want to show is your passion on a topic, on your other skills, and on your progression. And telling the data story isn't your primary goal. Sure, it's always going to be a part of the output in some kind, but sometimes you want something else to be that main story, and perhaps you should be that story. I'll go into some of my examples. I live near beaches, and there are some public rock pools to swim in, but they often get closed for cleaning. It's a minor inconvenience to show up at one and it's closed for cleaning and then have to go on to the next one, but it's still a frustration. The council does make this information available, but it's either a 13-page PDF or 14 separate web pages to go to. Both of them are in hard-to-read formats. So I loaded data into Tableau to show me the current status and the next scheduled closure. And I optimized it for mobile. I don't consider it beautiful, but I consider it very practical to me. But if someone comes across the dashboard, they'll see something that's pretty rudimentary. So my About page gives them context that I wanted a simple viz, as I'll load it on my mobile. Another example, race lap time optimization. I've always had cars and racing as a bit of an interest. And as I became able, I started to do a few track days and I started to collect data. And I'm very happy to talk about this for a very long time, but I'll try and stay on track with this talk. So I ended up building a dashboard to support a talk I was giving on how to analyze repeating GPS data with Tableau, like lap times for car racing or any event where you might do multiple circuits of the same track. How to split that data up into mini sectors so you can measure and improve your performance in the way that professionals do. This dashboard is very focused on the results side rather than the storytelling side. So back then, I didn't put anything on Tableau Public because without the context, they were just poor visualizations. There were some features that went along with this: outlier detection and completed lap detection, an important part of the analysis. But the viz really doesn't show any of that story. So I started adding an about page to some of this old content. This about page has a bit of a step-by-step for how I created those geographical boundaries for the mini sectors, how to merge them with my data, and a little bit about the Tableau formula side, and what I was trying to achieve with it. One of my habits is once I've solved what I'm trying to do with the data, I often move on. I'd like to do a beautiful viz, but there are so many shinier things calling me, that next problem to solve, and only so much time to do it with. So we must prioritize. My next example, my golf swing data. The physics of what happens between a golf club and ball in that tiny fraction of a second when they contact, and the fact that I can deliberately influence that is pretty amazing to me. Anyway, that isn't the point of the talk. But once again, I've built a dashboard with some data. I even found conclusions with that data which helped me improve my golf game. But my visualization doesn't really tell a story. It's just data for me. So my About page this time tells that full story. I actually made the data by hitting golf balls at a place that captures what happens. Getting that data, it's available on this third-party website on all these different pages where I had links in all these separate emails. So I had to go through and collect all that data and bring it all together. So I solved this with Python and Selenium. This allows me to get it into a nice format for Tableau. I could even have it make it a hyperfile directly if that was useful for me. And so the About page gets into details and tries to show that I know how to solve a data acquisition problems and use tools alongside of Tableau. Since doing my initial talk on About pages, I've seen a few people take up this method and apply About pages to their content as well. And a big thanks to Andy for letting me use his content. He's taken this approach and applied it with brilliance. Please go check out his Tableau Public profile. He shares great content there and also information on how to do the things he does yourself. Let's look at two cases where Andy has used an About page. When it comes to talking about Tableau dashboards, we love the showy stuff. Data stories, visualizations that really grab your attention and create talking points. But sometimes people need data for valid reasons. One of Andy's most well-received dashboards for work is a data downloader dashboard. Choose your own adventure self-serve report builder. The approach and flexibility of it gave it great power. But if you came across it on Tableau Public, you mightn't give it a second thought. Andy's About page gives the insight into why this dashboard is important, what features set it apart from just being another data sheet, and also what you need to know if you need to do something similar in your career. So that's what I mean by having an About page, getting your dashboard to tell the story of you and the dashboard. Another example I'll use from Andy is one that actually won a Visit of the Day award, a dashboard about rainfall in the sunny coast, where Andy explores whether the weather was wetter this year than it was in previous years. Now, while this dashboard clearly stands on its own from visual elements, Andy also shared a number of key points about his learnings when building it and what other tools he used to develop such a beautiful visualization. So, by adding the About page, he managed to enhance the story even further and provide that information about how, if you wanted to achieve this, you could go about it, and what tools he used, and what things he learned along the way that you might also want to learn. So, hopefully, those examples help show what I mean by having an About page and getting your dashboard to tell a story about you and the dashboard. Again, so what is it to tell your story? Here are some tips. Don't forget to provide the context that allows the story you want to tell to shine. If you have a great viz, certainly let it speak for itself. A separate About page can still talk about how you got there. I don't think my examples are by any means the gold standard, and certainly with Andy's examples, you can see how they can be. But each time I work on them, they get better. And surprise, spending time on something makes it better. Don't forget to explain the why, the context, or your learnings. Ask someone in the data fam to review it. What are the important elements to your story? Make those shine. It makes sense that Tableau's public natural focus is on the data visualization and the data story you've created and told. With these tips, you can make sure to tell your story, share your achievements, and help refocus discussion where you want it. Add that about or how-to page. Tell your build story, your story of data exploration, your story of solving a data problem, a coding problem, or perhaps some problem that's adjacent to your Tableau build. In some ways, it's like me giving this talk. I've provided background on how and why I got to this realization, not just add an about page. How do I know that you're getting the message from this talk that I want you to get? Well, I've repeated myself, I've got into details, I've tried to approach it from some different angles, like background, why I started doing it, and some examples. I used to find it very hard to get my Tableau Public viz to tell the story that I cared about until I started adding these about pages. By having this, you can free yourself up to focus on your goals, to learn something, and to share something. Thanks again, and I hope this has given you the confidence to take one of your visits that you may not have shared, add some context, and then share it on Tableau Public. Feel free to send me a note, add a comment, or reach out. Thanks again.